This is going to get recorded too, right?
Yes, it's a record. Okay, now it's your turn.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I think most of you know me by now, so I'm just going to go straight into the seminar. Okay. My contact information is outlined here. Okay, so that's my contact information. If you ever have any questions, or if it's just something that I said today that you don't quite understand, or you want to know, like go into more details, just feel free to either call me or just send me an email. Okay, so let's go ahead. So today we're going to talk about legal issues in the purchase and sale of rural recreational properties or cottages. And there's actually quite a number of issues you have to consider. In a purchase and sale of a cottage, there's a lot more legal issues you need to deal with than in a purchase of an urban residential property. So a house in Markham and a house up in Gravenhurst, or sorry, a cottage up in Gravenhurst, there are two separate different sort of properties, and you have to deal with a lot more issues with respect to a cottage property. So let's go ahead. Okay, like I just said before, the legal issues that a buyer and an agent will encounter in the purchase of a rural recreational property, cottages, are very different than those encountered in the purchase of an urban residential property. Now, as an agent, you must be very careful to identify and focus on these issues so that the buyers will not be dealing with them before and or after closing. For all the issues that we're going to be discussing today, you must make the necessary inquiries with the seller, the local municipality, and or any other party, and advise your buyer client accordingly. So what are the issues? What we'll be discussing is the following legal issues in the purchase and sale of rural recreational properties. First thing we're going to discuss is legal access. Second thing we're going to discuss is zoning designation. The third thing we're going to discuss is building permits, occupancy permits, and work orders. The fourth thing is the source of water for the property. Most of the time it's a water well. The fifth thing is the sanitation for the property, or the septic tank system, because most of the time the sanitation will not be by way of municipal sewage. It would be by way of a septic tank. And then we're going to discuss the personal properties to be included in the offer, such as boats, shoreline road allowances, conservation authority jurisdiction, registered and unregistered easements and rights of way, construction of waterbed, for example, docks and boathouses, water accreditation and diminution. That's when the water rises and falls below a certain level. Okay, we're going to talk about that as well, if we have time. Then we're going to discuss non-legal issues such as electricity, telephone, garbage collection, snow plowing, cable television, postal service issues, because these are not the same as in an urban property. A lot of times you'll find that these type of services, some of them are not available with respect to a cottage property. So I think if we have time, we'll discuss these issues. If we don't have time, we'll deal with the more major ones, the first few issues that I outlined, okay? If we do have time, we'll deal with these other issues as well. But I do want to talk about the importance of having a current survey for the property. It's very, very important. For a cottage property, it's really important that you talk to your client, the buyer client, about the importance of getting a current survey. And then we're going to go through a survey for the property so I can outline all the issues that we discuss or we will be discussing today. Okay, so
let me check the audio. I think the audio maybe has a little problem.
Okay.
Let's choose this one. Yeah.
Are they hearing me at all?
Let me check.
Okay, can people hear me now? Is it much better? Do I need to go start from the beginning again? Okay, so we just keep going. Okay, so we're gonna first discuss the legal access to the property. That is really the main issue I find in most of these rural recreational properties. How do one get access to the cottage? Now, most of the time, you know that the cottages are kind of secluded. They're not on major roads, not like in Markham here, where you see that almost all the houses are abutting a municipal road. So with cottages, because most of the time people want them to be secluded away from a lot of activity, you'll find that the cottage itself will be situated in, like, say, someplace that's not near a major road. So you have to look into how does one get access to the property. Now, like I said before, with most urban properties, access is not an issue, as access to these properties is by way of a municipal road allowance. So most of the time, in an urban, with respect to an urban property, you're going to get access to a municipal road. However, access to many rural recreational properties may not be by way of a municipal road allowance. You have to look and see whether, and look into the issue of whether access to the property is by way of a municipally maintained road, or does the owner have to cross over privately owned or crown land? Now, if access is obtained by crossing a private roadway or public land, you have to look into the issue of whether the access granted is pursuant to a registered easement or right-of-way. And then on top of that, you have to find out who is responsible for maintaining this easement or right-of-way. So if access to the property is through a registered easement or right-of-way, you have to find out who's responsible for maintaining it. And then you have to let your buyer client know that he may have some responsibility to maintain the road to the cottage. Okay, so and sometimes access to the cottage property may be by way of water only, and these are probably for very expensive cottages. There is no road leading to the cottage itself. You have to use a boat to get to the cottage itself because it's so secluded. And then even if access is by way of a municipally maintained road, you have to ask, does the municipality maintain it throughout the entire year? Some rural recreational properties are zoned seasonal, meaning that the municipality does not maintain the roadways. It may not provide emergency services in the wintertime. So you have to look into this issue and see, can I get access to the property all year round? Sometimes the road is not maintained during the winter, and then there's no snow plowing, and your client may be out of luck, like to get to the cottage in the wintertime. So you have to look at these. You have to look at how does one get legal access to the property, whether it's by way of a municipal road, whether it's by way of a private road or private easement, or whether it's through public land. Then you have to look at the maintenance of the road. Okay, if it's a private road, you have to look and see whether your client has some responsibility as a cottage owner to maintain that road. And then if it's by way of a municipal road, you have to talk to the municipality and see whether they would maintain that road all year round. And given the price of some cottage properties, lack of a legal right of full access can seriously affect their value. So once again, this is a very important issue you must look into. Okay, so as an agent, you need to ask the seller about the access to the property, and you need to make the necessary inquiries with the local municipality about access. Okay, and then once you have determined, like that there is legal access and that who's responsible for maintaining it, you have to advise your client accordingly. And my suggestion is that you insert a warranty clause in the offer that the sellers represent that there is legal access to the property in the agreement of purchase and sale. So once again, in the agreement of purchase and sale, you should put in some sort of a clause to say that the seller represents one that there is legal access to the property. Okay, now I'm not sure, do we have any questions at all about this, or we'll move on to the next? So move on to the zoning designation. Okay.
So actually,
Now-
Peter, can I ask one thing?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, David here. That's great. The access to the property is very important to the seller, to the buyer anyway. So do you think the survey you talked about last time will show everything, something like that in the survey?
Yes, the survey will show how, I'm going to go through the survey later on at the very end, but the survey will show how you get legal access. But then it may show like the municipal road or the easement leading to the property, but then you have to do a title search to find out, is that road maintained, like is that road owned by the municipality, or if it's a private easement, you have to find out, you have to make sure that the easement is actually registered on title. So the survey will show you the actual road or the easement, depending upon, you know, like whether it's a private road or whether it's a public road. But you then have to do a title search to find out more details about that road itself. And you also have to talk to the seller about, if it's a private road, you have to talk to the seller and get some ideas to who's responsible for maintaining that road. Okay, it may be that all the cottage owners that use that road have some sort of responsibility to maintain it. Maybe they have to put some money into the maintenance of the road. Okay, and then if it's a municipal road, you have to talk to the municipality to see whether that road is maintained all year round. Okay.
I see. Understood. So that when you're talking about title search, because at the offer stage, we are not able to do title search yet. So in that case, in offer, what we can do about it?
Well, you could talk to your lawyer and then ask your lawyer, you know, this is only if you're very serious about the property. Okay, you're pretty sure you're going to make an offer. You're pretty sure you want to buy it. It may be worth the time and effort and the cost to actually get your lawyer to do a title search at the time when you make the offer, so they can satisfy themselves that there is legal access.
Okay, great. That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, so do we have any other questions about access at all? I just want you to keep this in mind when you bring your buyer client to go and take a look at a cottage. Okay, just think to yourself, how do I get access to the property? How's access to the property obtained? Okay, like just keep that in mind. And the second thing we're going to talk about is the zoning designation for the property. Some cottages are zoned for year-round use, while others are zoned for seasonal use. Once again, you must make the necessary inquiries with the seller and with the local municipality to find out what is the zoning designation for a property. Can my client use the cottage year-round, or can my client only use the cottage, say, during the summer, because the roads that lead to the cottage are not maintained during the wintertime. There's no snow plowing, for example. The municipality may say, we don't plow that road in the winter. In that case, your client cannot get access to that property during the wintertime. So it may just be zoned seasonal. And then once again, like I said, you must make the necessary inquiries with the seller and with the local municipality. And once again, I suggest that you put a warranty clause in the agreement of purchase and sale in the offer, that the sellers represent that there is year-round use to the property. If in fact the sellers say that that is the case, put that into the offer, okay, that there is year-round use. But before you do that, obviously you have to make the inquiries with the seller and with the local municipality to find out what is the zoning designation. So just keep in mind that some cottages are not zoned for year-round use. Okay, so you obviously don't want your buyer client to buy the property thinking they're going to be able to use it all year round. And then later on, they find out, oh, we can't actually use it during the winter. So it's very important you find out about the zoning designation. Okay, so that's pretty simple and straightforward. Do we have any questions about that at all? Okay, nothing? Okay, so let's move on to the next one. It's the dealing with building permits, occupancy permits, and work orders. Many cottages are custom built and renovations are often performed by the owners themselves. Again, you must make the necessary inquiries, advise the client, your buyer client accordingly. You must look into whether the cottage actually was built with a building permit, or if there are additions made to the cottage, you must find out whether there are building permits issued for those additions. And once again, you must make sure that the building permits, not only are there building permits, but that the building permits are closed, meaning that the municipality has come and did an inspection and closed off the permit, saying that everything was okay, like that the permit was that the inspection showed that there was no deficiencies with the construction. I'm sorry? EP. I'm not quite sure what that zoning is. What they mean? What do they mean by EP? I'm not sure.
You ask the person to explain what's the EP.
I'm not sure what the EP is. Actually, ask the person that sent this question. Maybe they can just call me or deal with it later. Yeah. Yeah, like we can deal with it later because I want to go through all this. Yeah, because. So, and again, I recommend that you put a warranty clause in the agreement of purchase and sale that the sellers represent that there are no work orders and that there are building permits for all construction and renovations done on the property which are closed. So this is another way to protect your buyer client. You make the necessary inquiries with the seller, with the local municipality to make sure that there are building permits issued and that there are no work orders outstanding against the property. And then you put a warranty clause in the offer that the sellers represent that there are no work orders and that all building permits have been issued and closed for any construction done on the property. Okay, so like I said before, there are a lot of issues you need to consider in a purchase of a cottage. Okay, and then the fourth issue that we're going to be dealing with has to deal with the source of water for the property. Many cottages are serviced by wells for water consumption. There is no municipal water system for most cottages because like it's just not efficient for the municipality to build a municipal water line to service cottages because they are so spaced far apart. There's not that many, like it's not like in Markham where you see all the houses, they're very close together. Then it's worth the municipality's time and effort to actually put in a municipal water system. But for most cottages, the source of water for the property are serviced by water well. Now, for water wells, you must ensure that there is acceptable quality. In other words, portability by obtaining the results of local health unit analysis. So you have to get some sort of a certificate from the local health unit where your property is situated. And you have to confirm that the water well is in fact okay, like that it's portable, meaning that it's drinkable and that there's no bacteria, like there's no bacteria. It's actually drinkable. That that the bacteria there is no bacteria with present in the water. And you also have to obtain a well driller certificate to show that there is acceptable quantity, meaning that that there's enough flow going into the property, like enough water flow going into the property. And I would suggest that you make the offer conditional upon obtaining a water portability certificate and acceptable well driller certificate to satisfy yourself that in fact the water is both drinkable and that there's enough pressure from the water so that you can take a shower, you can cook, that the water flow, that there's enough water pressure in the property so that you don't have to worry about like that the water is not getting into that the water pressure is not enough for a shower, for cooking, stuff like that. Okay. So that's pretty straightforward. Okay. With respect to the water well. And then the next issue we're going to be dealing with has to deal with sanitation for the property. Just like for water, it's not really economical for the municipality to put in a municipal sewage system for cottages. So a lot of times you'll find with cottages that you'll find that they have a septic tank system. most cottages are serviced by septic systems for sewage disposal. And once again, you have to make sure that there is a permit for the septic tank. And you should also make sure that the septic tank is functional. So you probably should have an inspection done for the septic tank system. And I would suggest that you make your offer conditional upon obtaining proof that there is a permit for the septic tank system, and that there's an inspection done for the septic tank system to make sure that it's okay, that it's operational, that there's no problems. Okay, do you have any questions about what we've talked about so far? I would have to look more into that. I can't give like, because it's okay. But any other,
You can take the chart. You see there's a yellow color. You move the mouse there. Move all the rungs. Yeah. The left. Yeah.
This one?
Click the chart on the top. The chart on the top.
This one?
Yeah. Yeah. I see some people, they have a question. They will show here. Anyway, maybe you can go by the end of the presentation to come back to.
Okay, let's move on to talk about the next issue, which is personal properties to be included in the offer. For example, boats. Okay, you have to make sure that you include everything that's going to be, all the personal properties that's going to be included in the offer, such as boats, for example. And just be aware that if you're including personal property in the offer, that HST is payable on the personal properties. So the seller does have to collect HST on the amount of the personal properties to be sold, and the buyer does have to pay HST on that amount. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. All right, and then we're going to talk about shoreline road allowances. Now, these shoreline road allowances are basically 66 feet strip of land reserved by the Crown, the government, and laid out along the shores of navigable lakes and rivers. Now, these strips of land are not owned by the landowner; it's public, and it's the public is allowed to use the shoreline road allowances. So many people have boathouses and other structures built on these shoreline road allowances, but just be aware that these shoreline road allowances are not, they may actually be owned by the owner, they may not. A lot of times I find that these shoreline road allowances are not owned by the owner. They're actually still Crown land. And you just have to be aware that this is not part of the property that you're purchasing. We're gonna actually, when we look at the survey later on, I'll give you an example of the shoreline road allowance. Okay, just be aware that these strips of land are owned by the Crown, by the government. They're public. They're not owned by your client. Okay, and if you want to, your client can actually, after they purchase the property, they can actually make an offer to the local municipality to buy these strips of land from the municipality. But there'll be a cost, of course, involved in that. Okay, so later on when we go through the survey, I'll show you what these shoreline road allowances are. So a lot of times you'll see that people will come and say, oh, my property is a waterfront property. But technically it's not, because you don't really have access directly to the water itself. You may be blocked off from the water by these shoreline road allowances, okay, which are public. Okay, so just be aware of that. Okay, take note of that. Okay, the only way you can tell whether there is a shoreline road allowance or not is through a survey. Okay, and that's why later I'm going to tell you how important it is to get a current survey for the property, for the cottage. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is conservation authority jurisdiction. Anytime you have water that's running in, like, through your property, you can be aware that this is probably an indication that the conservation authority has jurisdiction over your land. A lot of times you'll see little streams or little creeks running through the property. And that is because that's probably used for flood control, because a lot of times you'll see that these streams will expand during the spring months. And oh, sorry, I thought there's a question. Is there a question or no? Okay. A lot of times you'll see that you have little creeks running through the land, and these are used for flood control to make sure that, like, so that if there's a lot of water runoff, right, that the water will run off and not cause a flood in the area. So if you do see this, you have to make inquiries with the local conservation authority to make sure that they are okay with the construction of the buildings on the property, because obviously they do not want anything to be blocking these creeks or streams. So they want to make sure that these creeks and streams that are used for flood control are navigable, meaning that they're flowing through the property. So they'll have an interest in making sure that whatever construction that you're going to do on the property does not interfere with the flow of the creek or the stream. Okay, so you need to check with the local conservation authority to make sure that everything is okay, that they come back and they clear the property and say, oh, we don't have any issues with whatever construction has taken place on the property itself. How are we doing for time right now? Okay, so we have a lot. Okay. So we have dealt with many issues already, but then there's still some more that you have to look into when you're dealing with cottages. Like I said, okay, cottages are not like urban properties, all right? They're very different, and there's a lot more issues you need to consider with cottages. Next, we're going to deal with is registered and unregistered easements and rights of way. Okay, like I said before, okay, you could actually have easements and rights of way running through your property. For example, if people need to use your property to get access to their property, there might actually be a road running through your property for access by the adjacent landowners. So once again, you need to get a survey for the property, because a survey will tell you about these easements and rights of ways. All right, so we'll deal with that later when we look at the survey itself. Okay, and then once I show you the survey, a lot of these issues will come into place. Okay, so the other thing we want to, I guess the next issue we want to deal with is construction. Oh, sorry, should I actually say construction on waterbeds? Okay, not construction of waterbeds, construction on waterbeds. So a lot of times you'll find the docks and boathouses that are actually constructed over the water. Okay, and then in that particular case, you need to check with the Ministry of Natural Resources to make sure that they allow the dock or the boathouse to exist on that over the water. Because the Ministry of Natural Resources want to make sure that any construction over the water does not interfere with any fish spawning, meaning that they want to make sure that that you don't disturb any fish spawning beds. So once again, when we look into the survey later on, when we discuss the survey, you'll see this issue come out as well. Okay. Now, I don't think I'm going to deal with the water accreditation and diminution, because that's a little bit of a complicated issue. Okay, you should talk to a lawyer about that. And then these other issues that I've listed, such as electricity, telephone, garbage collection, snow plowing, cable television, postal service issues. Once again, you should make the necessary inquiries with the seller to find out when they collect the garbage, when the snow plowing takes place, whether you can get cable television, and find out how you get your mail as well. So, okay, so now we're going to talk about the survey itself. All right.
Peter, this is Tony. Do you mind explain what is the water accreditation? I don't know even how do you pronounce it, and the diminution. What does that mean?
Okay, that means that sometimes the water will rise and sometimes the water will fall. Okay, so the boundary of your property is not always where the water is, because sometimes if the water falls down, because let's say the water level falls, then you may get exposed land. Just be aware that that exposed land is not part of your property. And then sometimes the water will rise over your property. So the water line, the point there is that the water line does not always indicate the boundaries of your property. That's what I want to make a point. Do you understand? Like,
yes, kind of, but I just joined in now, so I see your last slide says the shoreline. Sorry, I missed that part. Do you mind to go back to the last slide? The shoreline issue.
okay, this issue has to deal with like I explained basically many bodies of water in Ontario are surrounded by a 66-foot shoreline road allowance owned by the Crown. So you may think that your property extends all the way to the water line, but in fact that may not be the case, because between the water and your property may be these shoreline road allowances, these 66 feet shoreline road allowances. Now, in some cases, the owner has made an application to the municipality to buy these shoreline road allowances and have these shoreline road allowances transferred into their name. So title belongs to the owner. But sometimes, a lot of times, these shoreline road allowances are public land, and anybody can actually have access to these to this land. So when we go through the survey later on, I'll show you an example of this. So you may not necessarily have a waterfront property because or an exclusive waterfront property, because access to the water from your land has to go through this public land, this shoreline road allowance. Do you follow?
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, okay, just to deal with the last issue, the water accreditation and diminution. Now, you know that water doesn't stay at the same level. It sometimes rises and sometimes it falls, okay? When land is exposed as a result of the fall of the water level, that's called accreditation, the exposed land may not be part of your property, all right? So just be aware that when the water falls, okay, land is going to be exposed, and that land may not belong to you. Okay, if the Crown owns that portion of the land that's exposed, that means that you may not actually have legal access to the property because that belongs to the Crown. And then, on the other hand, if water rises and it goes over your property, then just be aware that like that you're losing a portion of your property because water has gone over it. So just the thing I wanted to point out about the water accreditation and diminution issue is that just where the water is actually situated does not indicate the boundary of your property, because water rises and water falls. Okay, so the only way you can tell where's the boundary of your property is through a survey as well, like I said before. So this is why when I talk about the survey for the property, all of these issues will come into place, and you can see for yourself how important it is to get a survey. Okay, do we have any other questions? Sammy, do we have any other questions? Okay, this is the actual survey that it's actually a fictitious survey. This is not a real survey, but this is a survey that you may see with respect to cottage properties, that in the purchase of a cottage property, and it highlights a lot of the issues that we just discussed. Okay, and let me just go through the issues right now that we can see from the survey. Yeah, I need the pointer. Okay, so this is a cottage on Black Lake. Okay, so this is the shoreline road allowance that I talked about right here. This from here to here, do you see it? I'm pointing it out right here and over here as well. And you see this is the 66 feet. Okay, now this land may belong to you, or to the owner, or it may not belong to the owner. The only way you can tell whether this land belongs to the owner or whether it belongs to the Crown is through a title search. But you see, this is the strip of land that I'm talking about, the Shoreline Road Allowance, that you have to keep in mind. If it's not owned by the owner, then it's public land and anybody can have access to this property. So technically you do not have exclusive access because you have to go through public land in order to get to Black Lake. So, so that's something you have to keep in mind. And the more important issue is that you see here that the house itself, this is the house or the cottage. Okay, you see that it's actually built on the Shoreline Road Allowance, and it's not actually built. If this land here, the Shoreline Road Allowance portion is not owned by the owner, then basically your cottage is sitting on public land. Okay, and that's a very serious problem. Okay, because it's not situated in your lot; it's actually situated on public land, and that basically means that anybody can have access to your cottage, can come into your cottage and can have access to it because it's public. So, just a minute. Can you close the door?
So Peter, which property is the subject property here? Is this the lot 1, part 1?
Okay, this is the survey itself. This is the actual lot. Okay, I'm going through it. This is the actual lot right here. Right here. That's the actual lot. This is the Shoreline Road Allowance that I talked about right here.
So this house was built.
It's built on the Shoreline Road Allowance. Like I said before, a lot of these cottages are custom built. And they don't, like, you know, sometimes they may not follow the proper procedures to build these things. Sometimes they may have built the cottage without getting a survey. They just put it where they think where the cottage should be. But it's actually sitting on the Shoreline Road Allowance right here. This part.
So Peter, that means this house built was not illegal in private land, in cross land.
This is what I said. You have to do a title search to determine who owns this part of the Shoreline Road Allowance. It is possible that the owner may have actually bought it from the municipality and it now owns this. But it just be aware that this part here was originally Crown land. Okay, and it may still be Crown land. We don't know. But the survey has indicated a problem because your house right here.
Yeah, in case, Peter, if it is in Crown land, it has been there 20 years, 30 years, 40 years.
No, there's no adverse possession against Crown land. You cannot acquire title to this property just through length of time. There is no adverse possession.
Okay.
So basically, if this is still owned by the Crown, then you have to get the owner to make an application to the municipality to buy this land, because obviously you want this land, right? Because your cottage is sitting on it.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Peter, if you do not mind, I want to add a few words to our audience here. I know that we have over 100 people before. A couple of people is just take off for lunch, and then I'm not hungry yet. I just want to add a few words here. Peter is a lawyer in our office building, and then give us free seminars. And then as broker, as managers of our office, we are very, very appreciate. And then Peter have done a training, I think last week or the week ago, that for the survey. The reason I want to add a few words here is, one, the market today is very hot. And then everywhere you go is a multiple offer and a firm offer, no condition offer. And then people say this market today is on fire. It is similar with 2017. And I have survived the 2008 to 2009 market up down. And I have survived the 2017, 2018 market change. I want to mention here as a broker, first of all, when you buy a house, make sure you ask the seller for a copy of the survey. If the seller or the agent do not give you a survey, consult a lawyer regarding the survey and the title search. Remember, we mentioned one thing: get your client mortgage approved in writing, get your client to do a pre-offer home inspection, Then I want to add one more thing here. Get your client, find a lawyer, do a title search before you put the offer. It will cost you maybe $100, but this $100 will give you some, extra benefit. One of our agents bought a house back in 2017, and on closing, he found out that there's a big easement at the back of his property, occupied 30% of the land, which is the land. The depth of the lot is 150, but it's like 30 feet. All those land was occupied by the easement. So make sure, do not answer me the question like that. Oh, the client want a firm offer. Oh, the client really want a house. They are dying to buy this house. I just put a firm offer. I don't care they have a condition or not. I don't have the server or not. I just go ahead with the firm offer. Your two eyes only focusing on the commission, you're gonna have a big trouble. This morning I share a post in all the group I have in. I said Remax All-Star get a penalty over 31,000 because they do not follow FinTrack rules. Our secretary already posted in the group that we're going to have a FinTrack training on April 11. I think if I don't remember mistakenly. Please join those training. Join the training like today. You're going to learn something like today. Peter showed us that what is the shoreline allowance. I don't think that many people understand what is the shoreline stand for. You need to learn, you need to memorize. You can then give our client, proper guidance. Thank you, Peter. Go ahead. Sorry for this.
Oh, no problem. Okay, thank you, Tony. Okay, so now you can see, okay, an example of the shoreline roll allowance. This is the actual lot itself that your client is buying right here. Okay, and like I said, this is the shoreline roll allowance here. It's a 66 feet strip of land, and it may be owned by the owner, or it may be owned by the crown, the government, and the only way you can find that out is through a title search. So, like Tony said before, my suggestion is if you're going to be buying a cottage property, the two things you need to do before you even make an offer is to get a survey and to do a title search. Okay, that way you know exactly what you're buying. Now, this other the second thing I want to point out about the survey is that this road itself is known as Black Lake Road. Okay, but it says right here that it's not transferred to the municipality. So the municipality, okay, the city or the town does not own this road, right? So it's technically considered to be a private road, right? Then you have to find out who owns this road and whether or not your client has the right to use this road in order to get to their property. And if, in fact, they do have the right to use this road, then you have to find out who's responsible for maintaining this road, because there is a maintenance cost to these roads. So the survey indicates to you right here that there's a road to your property, but that it's not transferred to, it says here, no transfer to municipality, so it's not owned by the municipality. We don't know who owns it. We don't know whether your client has the right to use it. And we don't know if your client does have the right to use it. If they buy this property, who's going to be responsible for maintaining it? So that's the access issue that we talked about earlier. Okay, so you can see here that the survey actually shows you this as well. Okay, and then you can see here that this is the septic bed, okay, part of the septic tank system. And you can see that it's actually encroaching onto the road itself, all right? You see here that part of it is actually sitting on the so-called road. So once again, that caused a little bit of concern because whoever owns this can come back and say, remove your septic bed, okay, because it's sitting on my property, put it back into your property. And the removal and the relocation cost for the septic bed will be very expensive. So once again, if your client becomes the owner, they may have this responsibility as well. So that's something else to keep in mind. And then the other thing that really concerns me is this so-called Black Fry Lane. It's cutting through the middle of your property here, right here. It says there no registered right of way. So we don't know exactly what this lane is used for, okay? But it is running through the middle of your property here. it's like I said, this is an unregistered easement or right of way. And once again, you need to be very concerned about this because obviously you do not want people to be coming and going through your property, right? I don't know, like right now, I don't know what this lane is being used for or what is the purpose, but in any case, you don't want this lane to be existing in your property. You want basically, you know, you don't want people to be coming in and using your property like it's their own property, right? So there's this easement or this lane that's causing a bit of a problem as well. And then there's a overhead hydro transmission line right here. You can see it right here. And that would cause me quite a bit of concern as well, because there's a hydro transmission line running through your property. And I don't know too many people that like that. So that's another issue you need to consider. Okay, and then remember we talked about the construction on the waterbed. You have a boathouse here. Okay, it's situated. You see this part here? It's going over Black Lake, and that will cause me some concerns as well, because I had to find out first of all whether there was a building permit done for this boathouse, whether there was a building permit issued and closed for this boathouse, and also you have to be concerned with the Ministry of Natural Resources, whether they would have allowed this boathouse to be in place. Okay, so you have to check with the Ministry of Natural Resources to see whether in fact they approved this boathouse as well. Okay, and then you can see here that this structure is encroaching onto your neighbor's property, as well as this frame shed is encroaching onto the neighbor's property. Okay, which also caused me a little bit of concern. But I guess the main concern that I have is with respect to the house itself. Why is it sitting on the shoreline road allowance? Like, and is this shoreline road allowance owned by the owner so that your property goes from here and extends over here as well? Okay. So if it's an agent came to me and said to me, should my client buy this property? I would probably say no. There's too many issues, too many problems, and you know, like, why do you want your client to buy a property with so many headaches? Okay, I personally wouldn't buy this property because I already know all these problems that have come up as a result of looking at the survey. Okay, so, and even if the seller doesn't own this part and comes to me and says, oh, I'll buy this part from the municipality and then, you know, transfer it over to the buyer, my concern would be that would take a long time. That could take up to a year. And especially with the COVID situation, the municipalities are not running at full speed. So it may take a long time for this transfer to take place, that this part of the land can be purchased by the present owner to transfer to your client. So once again, you know, you have to keep that in mind as well. And this lane here that's running through the middle of my property, that really concerns me as well. Okay, because I'm thinking to myself, like, why is there a lane that's running through my property? And most people I know don't want, you know, don't want anybody to have access to the property, right? So that's about it. Okay, so the reason I pointed out the survey is just to show you how important it is to get a current survey for the property. And along with the current survey, you should also get a title search done, so you know exactly what you're buying, you know exactly what the legal issues are, and you can advise your buyer client accordingly. Okay. And then the other thing that concerns me, and once again, I just point this out, is that this road itself is not transferred to the municipality. So we don't know who owns this road and whether your client actually have access to, has the right to use this road so that they can have access to the property. So there's a lot of issues that you have to consider if you're going to be making a purchase of this cottage. Okay, so I think that's about it. We do have a little bit of time for some questions. Is there any questions? And thank you for attending my seminar. And if you ever have any questions or anything you want to talk to me about, my contact information is here. Okay. Sorry.
Peter, can I ask a question?
Oh, just a minute. Let me just, yeah. So that's my contact information. So if you have any If you have any questions, just feel free to call me or just to email me. Okay, go ahead. Who am I speaking to?
Yeah, so there's a bill. Just a question based on what you talking about the title search for buying the this property. I'm just thinking of in our regular purchase of the agreement for regular house. For example, there's a clause for title search. So that means we should do a title search even for a regular house?
I don't think that would be necessary because like if you're buying a house in Markham and it's part of a plan of subdivision and it's like maybe less than 30 years old, like the title, I've done a lot of these purchases and the title is usually pretty good. Like it's usually clean. So if you're buying a house in Richmond Hill, in Markham, in Vaughan, you know, and even in the city of Toronto, like I don't think you really need to have a title search clause. But for a cottage, it's very different because you can see here that there's so many issues that come up with the purchase of a cottage, right? Like you have to find out who owns this Shoreline Road Allowance. You have to find out about this this road here. Why is it not transferred to the municipality, and you know who owns it, right? So with a cottage, that's the advice would be reversed. Basically, I would suggest that you get a title search and a survey done, even before you make the offer, because you don't want to go through the offer process, give a deposit, and then find out later on that there's so many issues, and then you know like that the deal has to be unraveled. You don't want to go through that process, right? So the survey and the title search before you make the offer, I think is very good practice if you're purchasing a cottage. But for a urban residential property in Markham or Richmond Hill, I don't think it's really that necessary. I mean, of course, it's better to have it for a property that's in the urban in an urban setting, but I don't think it's essential. But for the cottage, I think it is essential. Yeah, the title search and the survey.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Peter, can I ask one more question? David again.
Go ahead.
Yeah, look at the survey because you gave us the survey, I mean, explanation last time. So again, I saw it. For septic tank, I'm not sure that the septic tank should have the permit or not. If not, so if the septic tank something wrong or whatever is not according to the guideline of the code, will be any problem for the buyer in future or not?
Oh, of course. I mean, anything built without a permit is going to be a problem, right? Everything that's constructed on the property should have a permit, or most construction. I mean, you have some very minor construction, you don't need a permit. You have to check with the local municipality to see which construction needs a permit or not. But I mean, of course, you need to have a permit issue because I mean, if it's constructed without a permit, then in theory, the municipality can come to you and say, fix it up so that it's up to the code, or remove it, right? So you don't want that problem.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hello, Peter. May
Yes.
I ask a question? Yeah, about the zoning. Just now I saw the EP. EP is the environmental protection. If some vacant land, you know, I saw a small vacant in the field. They said that the neighbor already have the property on that, but the neighbor and all this land is a EP zoning. I just wonder if in the future, this small land can get permit from the city build something.
Well, I would have to I would have to look into the zoning designation, and then usually the zoning designation, they would tell you what construction is allowed and not allowed. Did you check with the town of Innisfield to see what they allow for environmental protection lands? I can't tell you off the bat because like, you know, like it's a very specific question.
Oh, okay. I checked the city land, just website, right? They said if there is exist property, it's okay. But if not the property, right, no property there, right? So it's not allowed to build in the
I think
land.
maybe it's better if you actually call the planning department or the building department for the town of Innisfield and maybe discuss this with them in person with them. Okay. And then that's probably the best because usually they're very helpful and they will tell you the answer like very quickly because they know the zoning bylaws pretty well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay.
Any other questions at all?
Hi, Peter.
Yes.
I put out the question in the chat, but wasn't properly phrased. So regarding the 66 feet shoreline allowance, does it apply to any shape of land? or
Yeah, it
has
applies to
be-
any shape of land. It basically applies to any shape. It doesn't matter if there's a cliff. Like it's
Okay.
basically from the shoreline inwards to 66 feet. So it would apply to a cliff as well.
Oh, so okay, regardless the shape. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
regardless.
Thank you.
Okay,
Hi,
Yeah.
Peter. Ask a question.
go ahead.
My question is, if I put a title search and lawyer review the my purchase and sale, and how long does it take to get it done? So the title search.
It could be done in a day. It could be done in a day. It could be done very quickly. But the title search, I think it's important. But I think getting a survey for the property is very important as well. In fact, I think the survey is probably the most important thing you can get for your client. Because you see here, like a lot of the times the title search will not tell you about this this construction, right? Because you won't know from a title search that the house has been constructed on the shoreline road allowance. Only a survey will tell you this. So I think the survey is the most important.
Okay, if I get a survey from the seller and I should bring the survey to the lawyer and let lawyer review it, and then
Well, first you have to find out. First, you have to find out what type of survey you're getting. Sometimes they'll give you a survey that's very basic. Like sometimes they'll just give you a land survey. It won't even include any of the structures, right? So you want to get the survey from the seller and then look at the survey and then compare it with the actual conditions on the land. Like if the survey, does the survey actually include the buildings as well? Does it actually show the construction? Or sometimes it just shows the basic land itself. So you want to you want to make sure that you get an up-to-date survey if possible, like the most recent survey for the property.
okay.
So just keep that in mind as well when you get in the survey. You know, like make sure you get the most recent survey that you can.
Okay, so you mean that's the do the title search? That's the complete everything, right? Even you don't have survey.
Well, no, the title search is not sufficient. The survey is the most important, but the best thing you can do is to get both the survey and a title search done.
Okay.
But if you're asking me what's the most important, it would be the survey.
Oh, I see. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, no problem. Any other questions at all? Or?
Yes. Hi, Peter. I have one question. Can lawyer register a property with after title search and you found out there is a lien against the property for the buyer side? Thank you.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. If
Can lawyer register the title for the buyer if the lawyer has found out there's a lien during the title search period of time, there's a lien actually registered against the property?
Well, most of the time, the title should be clean and shouldn't come with a lien. So if there's a lien on the property, the lawyer should try to get that lien removed before he registers the transfer to give the property to the buyer. So that should be done before closing.
Do you know there's something called there's 60 days to register title and the seller cannot sell the property if there's a lien against the property for this, again, on the buyer side?
I don't quite understand the question.
Neither do I, because the lawyer can basically register the property for the first 60 days for the buyer, even though there is a lien registered against the property.
Well, what happened is the lawyer has to determine whether the lien can be discharged, can be removed. And then he has to see whether the seller's lawyer has the ability to remove it. So let's say the lien is for a debt, let's say for $5,000.
Okay.
And the buyer's lawyer has to get an undertaking from the seller's lawyer that he will take $5,000 from the sale proceeds and pay off that lien and have it discharged. So in that case, the buyer's lawyer can go ahead and close if he gets the seller's lawyer's undertaking to pay the $5,000 and to have that lien removed. But he has to see what that lien is. Sometimes you may get a lien for
Right.
outstanding income tax, right? Like
Okay.
the COA may register a lien against the property. Like,
Thank you. Does that have any time frame on that? 60 days or whatever the time?
it's a negotiation between the buyer's lawyer and the seller's lawyer. Like,
Thank you.
yeah, okay.
I think that, Peter, I think that Cindy is asking a question in such a scenario that, let's say a buyer put offer for property and then whatever the reason is, the first offer falls through, they do not sign a mutual lease, and then they go to the litigation, the buyer resells the property, and I forgot the exact wording, is it caution on title or register your interest on title, like within. So let's say if I pay the deposit for the property, let's say I pay the 10,000 for the property, and then the seller change mind, and then he wants to sell the property to another party, even without a mutual lease on me. That's I think that's the Cindy probably talked about that, the caution on the title, but it's only valid for 6 days.
Oh no! Okay. So you're saying that the buyer's lawyer wants to register a lien or register a caution on title that prevents the seller from selling the property? Is that what she's getting at?
No.
Maybe not, but I think my question is this: like, let's say the first buyer put a deposit, then the property sold 1 million. The second is the buyer's the offer is firm, but the seller change mind, whatever the reason is, then they do not make a lease. Then go ahead and sell the second buyer for 1.2 million. So the seller for sure will go ahead with a new offer. How would you deal with the first buyer? The first buyer will say, I want to register on title for caution note.
Well, the buyer would have to register a certificate of pending litigation. So they would actually have to make a motion to the court. Okay.
CPL. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, CPL. Yeah.
So they have to register a CPL or a certificate of pending litigation on the property that would prevent the seller from actually selling the property. But they would the buyer would have to go to court and convince a judge that that they have a valid first offer, and that they should stop the seller from selling the second property or to selling the property to the second buyer.
Thank you so much. That's a very good point.
Okay. Anything else? Do you have any other questions or?
Peter, yeah, one more. I need your suggestion to our agent. In very general so far, a lot of sailors, they don't have survey for normal residential houses, right? But in a cottage, in case the cottage they don't have a survey, so what suggestion you can give us to make when we make offer?
Well, if a cottage doesn't have a survey, you have to be very cautious in proceeding. I personally do not feel comfortable acting for a buyer of a cottage property without a survey, because you have to be very careful. You definitely should get a title search done, because the title search will tell you some details of the property. It won't give you the full details, but you also have to kind of take a look and see, the conditions on the property. You have to see where the house is. Is the house too close to the shoreline? Is the house too close to the road? You have to take a look at that and make an assessment as to the risk that your client is buying just by looking at the conditions on the property. But like I said, it's best that you get a survey if you can for a cottage property. Otherwise, you have to really be very careful when you're proceeding without a survey.
Yeah, that's right.
David and Peter, I would suggest this, that first of all, I know that the cottage market is very hot. People think that the cottage is being double priced from last year until now. But I would say, read this the survey Peter posted on the screen now. Read this survey. Can you, any agent comfortable to go ahead and buy a cottage without a proper survey? I would say no. Secondly, if the market is very hot, you need to put a condition on the survey. The buyer can go ahead to order a new survey. The buyer will say, Tony, let's spend 2 months. No, a survey, a surveyor firm or a registered surveyor can do a survey in a couple of days, 1 week, maybe 10 days, you can get a survey. and the survey costs you between 1,500 to 5,000. But that investment really worth the money because you don't do the investment, then a couple of years later, your house will be water away. You know, look at this shoreline house. You know, I feel scared. You know, and then if you are agent involved on this purchase of this property, which is sitting on the shoreline, how can you fall asleep? You know, how can you assure that the commission paid to your pocket? You paid the tax last year. You probably need to come out of the tax. Share a case with everyone today. We have agent, you know, get a commission paid back in 2018. Now the case come out of the court. You have to pay back the commission from your pocket to other parties. You have an income on 2018. You report income tax. Now you have to come out of the pocket from your pocket to this party. Can you ask the CRA to say, hey, that year I paid the tax. Can you repay the tax back to me? Not possible. Then you're gonna have a double lose, then you double loss. Why you do that? So once again, anyone buying a commercial property, business, or a cottage or farm, for me, if you ask me for a suggestion for consultation, the number one clause I'm going to put here, this offer is conditioned upon the buyer's lawyer review for 10 days. I want the lawyer to take the responsibility and then to approve the offer to the extent that the buyers feel comfortable. I want to repeat what I said. If the buyer wants comfortable to buy the property, I want the lawyer to help you, 给你保驾护航. So the lawyer can read the survey, lawyer can do the title search, make sure you buy a right property without any big concern. If you bought this cottage on the what you call Black Lake Road on the screen here, oh my God, I cannot fall asleep for myself. Don't mention the buyer or the agent himself.
Yeah, Sonny, you're right. Yeah, Peter said already. Yeah, we don't buy this one. Right.
Well, no, of course. If you get the survey, you come across this property, of course you won't buy it. Of course not. It'd be ridiculous for you to buy it. Like, but I'm just telling you, this shows you the importance of having a survey. Okay, if I was the lawyer and I see a cottage purchase without a survey, I would almost be very hesitant to take the file because I don't want that problem to come back to me and then the client come back to me in 2 to 3 years time and say, oh, look, I have all these problems. Because don't forget, the neighbor could also do a survey too, right? So if the neighbor does a survey, a lot of times it will show a lot of the conditions on your property because the survey is not just exclusive on one property. A lot of times it will show the conditions on the adjacent property as well. So if the neighbor does a survey and then comes back and says, finds all these problems, and then the buyer comes back to me and says, you should have told me to get a survey. I don't want to get into an argument with him because a lot of times if the client comes to me and closes a deal without a survey, I would spend a lot of time talking to him and saying, you really need to get a survey done. You have to sign a waiver to, to say that you understand that I told you to get a survey and you declined to get a survey, because I don't want to be like acting as an insurance policy for the buyer. The buyer decides, oh, I don't want to get a survey. I don't want to spend the money to get the survey. And then later on finds out that there's a lot of these problems and come back and sues me, right? And says, oh, you should have told me this. You should have told me this. You should have told me to get a survey and stuff, right? Because then I'm just like kind of acting as an insurance policy for the client. Because the client decides, oh, I don't want to pay $5,000 for a survey. And then later on, these problems come up and I get into trouble as well as the agent. The agent will get into some trouble as well. Right. So nobody wants trouble, after the deal closes. So the most important thing, the best service you can do is to tell your client, look, I know it's going to be $5,000 to get the survey, but like a lot of times these cottage properties have a lot of problems. And I think it's advisable that we get the survey and proceed. That way, if there's any problems, that you can identify, have the seller fix them before closing. Otherwise, just walk away and say, oh, no, like forget it. We don't want the property. Like we don't want to proceed with the offer. So,
for sure, someone will not like your answer. Oh my God, walk away. That's a $10,000 commission to me.
Of
But
course
once
not. Of
again-
course not. But do you, I mean, as an agent, are you going to tell your client to buy this property, knowing like this particular property here on Black Lake, knowing that there's so many problems? You have an access issue because you don't know who owns the road for access. You have a house that's not even built on your land; it's built on government land. You have the bed that's sitting on a road. You have all these encroachments. You have a right of way, some like a laneway that goes through the middle of your property that people can use, or that people are using. Like you see all these issues that you can see from this survey. All right. And now this may be an extreme example, but a lot of times if you do get a survey for a cottage, you'll come across some issues, you know, and I think it's better that you know exactly what you're getting yourself into, you know, and you know exactly what these issues are, than to come back 2 years down the road and have a very unhappy buyer, you know, coming back to you and coming back to the lawyer and saying, you know, like, look, you know, like all these problems I have now with this property, right? You know, so like I said, that's one of the things you really need to keep in mind, like with a cottage property, get a survey done, okay? And then even get a survey done before the offer, because you don't want to, you know, if you don't have an offer, then you're not bound to anything. You can walk away just like that. You don't have to chase after the seller to get your deposit back. Sometimes the seller may, you know, say it's not a really big issue. Like, you know, I don't want to, you know, like, no, you still have to close. Like, why do you want to get into an argument? Get the survey done beforehand, and then you know, you can identify the issues even before you make the offer. Now, if I was acting for the seller, a lot of times I might even tell the seller, oh, go and get a current survey for the property, know what the issues are, because you don't want the buyer to be suing you 2 years down the road and saying, you know, like you have this problem with this house, you have a problem with access. Like, you don't want the buyer to be coming after you. So, you know, if you get a survey done for the house or the cottage, you know exactly what the issues are, and then you can maybe get them fixed up. So that way, when you sell the cottage to the buyer, you know, you're selling them to them clean. So you don't have any issues, unresolved issues that you have to deal with after closing. Because the buyer may actually go after the seller as well and say, oh, you know, the seller, you know, has knowledge of these problems and, you know, decided to sell them anyway, you know, like or sell the cottage with these problems. So the buyer can actually go after the seller as well as his own agent and also his lawyer. So if you're acting for the seller, you know, it may be advisable for you, especially if the cottage itself is expensive. If it's a very expensive cottage, let's say you're selling a cottage for $2 million, for example, you know, maybe worth the seller's while to get a survey done, you know, and then that way, you know, and if the survey showed that there is no problems, he may be able to get a better price for his house or for his cottage, because he's going to say, look, I'm selling you a clean cottage, right? I want more than 2 million. I want 2.1 million, for example, because, you know, like, there's no problems with my cottage. So for the seller, it may be advisable for them to get a survey done as well, just so that they'll take care of any of these issues before closing, and then, you know, I mean, maybe be able to get a better price for their cottage. So that's the thing to keep in mind. Okay, and if you guys, I think that's probably the end, right? Like, do you guys have any other questions, or are we good? Okay, like I said, if you have any issues, feel free to contact me by email or by phone. You know, and I'll you know, and I'll be happy to help. Okay, then, thanks very much. Thank you. How do we end this? Okay.